I did not have any comments on the 19th, but I had 2 comments on October 10th.
Okay, I didn't have any.
My name's spelled wrong on the 10th, that's all.
Which one?
At the end, where I moved to adjourn.
On which?
The
What date?
10th.
On the 10th?
Yeah, the very last page. She missed the second L. I'm sure it's
Oh.
really not a big deal, but just for accuracy's sake.
Okay, well, if
That's
we're on.
it. Everything
if
else looked
we're on
great.
October 10th, the 7:20 appointment should be labeled 44 Barbary Circle. She just forgot to put circle in
Oh,
there.
yeah, yeah.
And
I missed that.
the other one was minor too. Oh, right at the top, Mike Borselli stated, there should be a D there, it just says state that. Oh, and those are the only 2 that I had.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
I move to approve the meeting minutes as amended.
I will second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item number 2, sign expense warrants. We have-
Yes, there are 3 expense warrants. Signed all of them. There's 2.
Nice.
Yep, I said that, please.
Flu clinic display ads. How was the flu clinic?
Yes,
When is it
we've
scheduled?
had 2 flu clinics already.
Do we have a third, though?
Nope,
It was just the 2?
just the
Okay.
2.
How
Yep.
was the turnout for those?
266 total.
It's not bad.
Yeah,
good
we
turnout.
did 170 at the first and 96 at the second. 97, actually.
Okay.
So it was 267.
Is that more, that's more than last year, right?
Yeah, that's 40 more than last year.
Nice.
I was talking to Amy Von Hoen in Brewster, and she said theirs was like 50 to 60 above the previous year, too. I guess
Falmouth was also.
Yeah,
I guess the
Yeah.
CVS ran out of vaccine.
well, they ran out of the high dose.
Oh, okay.
And because we're now dealing with the hospital, the pharmacy division had saved some of the high dose for both of the clinics.
Nice. So we could
And
accommodate.
that worked out really well.
Yeah. Excellent.
Cool. How's our landfill contract going thus far? Are they keeping the reports coming in on time and everything, or?
Haven't seen anything recently.
Oh, okay.
Are you are, sir?
Alrighty, moving right along. Let's see, discussion of the letter from MAHB requesting ban on mint and menthol flavored tobacco. So, trying to remember, we did get an attachment on that one, right?
Yes.
Regulate.
Yeah, there's been an email circulated by several people on that. One of which was Dr. Lester Hartman from Westwood, who's kind of been the champion for the tobacco. And now the flavored products, and now the state is looking to do something. By November 20th, they want to get something, the bill has made it out of one of the committees and now to the Senate for a floor vote. And they're hoping to do that.
All flavored tobacco or just vaping?
All flavored tobacco. Yeah, and vaping products, so,
All flavored.
the email was requesting people to call in to their senators and representatives for that vote, which they're hoping to do before the session ends on November 20th.
Right, right. So they're looking for us to send a letter, communicate with our senator? Or, trying to see what they've got. So they're kind of just asking us to call or email this week?
Yes.
Okay. So our reps are,
Robert DeLeo. It's, if you go all the way down, it's in the bottom.
Chair of Ways and Means. Oh, okay.
Robert DeLeo's office, Speaker of the House, and Aaron Miklowitz, Chair of Ways and Means, are the two that were on this email, which was from October 22nd.
But do they want anything official from the board? Other, like?
Nope.
No, okay.
Nope, they just want people to call in to their reps to let them know that they're in favor of banning the flavored products.
Okay.
It certainly seems to be the way everything's going. I mean, I think there's a federal ban that's looming for menthol and mint flavored vaping products anyway, so
Yep,
it seems to be.
yep, this includes mint and menthol in the state action too.
Yeah, no, that's good, because that's, there's definitely a socioeconomic factor that goes in with the menthol and mint piece, so it would be good to see that happen as well. And I think if, if this weren't to go through, or this, the federal bill, if either of those were to fail, and, maybe we should think about taking up the mint and menthol ourselves. So, but yeah, I think I'm happy to make a phone call.
Mhm. When are they voting? When did it say?
Probably pretty soon, yeah. Usually they tell you on, if you subscribe to the legislature, like you can follow pieces of specific
When it'll be on the
legislation on
floor.
here. And it'll give you like alerts when things are moving out of committees, or, they're gonna be taking a vote on things, so.
Yeah, definitely have to track that.
And I think you can actually type in the House bill number and the Senate bill number. Yeah, so they got a House bill and a Senate bill. I wonder how that works, because I know that once they vote on it, they have to reconcile both versions and that whole process, so I wonder how long that plays out if they're trying to get it done before the end of the session. Okay. Yeah,
Nice.
cool. Discussion on the future Board of Health short-term rental property regulation.
Yeah, this was in the recently approved rental bylaw at town meeting. The Cape Cod Real Estate Association came back in and met with the town manager and chairman of the selectmen, and made some late changes to the bylaw.
Okay.
And two of those changes referenced a Board of Health regulation. And the first change was the response time to emergencies within a reasonable period of time as defined by Board of Health regulation. So we don't have any regulations right now that specifically say, unless we leave it as the sanitary code, which is fix in 5 days, hire a contractor by 7 days, and have 30 days to repair.
Yeah, but
which-
there are those, like 7 items that are within 24 hours.
Yeah, but they have to be imminent threat if
Right.
they're 24 hours, and
Right.
I think that, well, this could further describe it in our own regulation, that's all.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the second one is required inspections by inspection services personnel shall occur prior to issuance of a rental certificate and at intervals so determined by Board of Health regulation but not more than once annually. So, again, this references a Board of Health regulation. It's not specific to what regulation. It doesn't say a state regulation, it says Board of Health regulation. So I think we need to have something in place to define that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was just looking to make you aware of it and
When
be prepare a draft for the next meeting.
Yeah. When does this go into effect?
Not until the Attorney General approves it, which may take several months.
Right, it typically takes a while. Okay. I wasn't sure if that was something that like we needed immediately.
But we can be working on it.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, there shouldn't
Hello.
be too much to it. I mean, if it's just
No.
those two items.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Most everything's covered in here anyway, so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was an interesting town meeting, to say the least.
So you want me to come up with something for the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Let's see, what time is it? 7:12.
Yeah.
So, to the next meeting though, because my wife is due in very near term,
Right.
there's the opportunity that I won't be here. So I told Glenn pretty much just assume that I won't be here, and if I can make it, I will. But
Okay.
as far
Yep.
as quorum goes, just don't count on me being here.
Right?
That's good. Are we aiming for the 21st?
Yeah.
Because 28th is Thanksgiving, right? It's the
Yeah.
last Thursday? Okay.
Yeah, I'm gone from the 14th to the 20th, so I'm gonna try to prepare as much as I can beforehand, basically next week before I leave.
Okay. I mean, if there's not a lot, we can always push it to the first week in December, but you never know.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah,
there's a ton, so.
yeah, that first meeting in December.
He just did MBA from Bentley.
what's
I'll
it?
be here either way,
Oh,
so
okay.
you'll at least have me, and then,
December
Okay.
would be the 5th.
yeah,
Oh, the 5th, okay.
Yep.
keep me posted. Do you know, have you heard Laurel's schedule that far out? Is she,
She is a day-to-day with
yeah,
her
she's
new
all
job.
over the place,
Yeah,
yeah.
I talked to her yesterday and she didn't mention anything. And she called me tonight and said she had clients that she had to be with.
Yeah,
So, I think that's how the rest of her job is gonna go.
yeah, I think so too.
So,
Okay. Well, play it by ear then. Either one works for me.
Okay, so do we need a formal, we don't need a formal vote for that. It's pretty much, we're just
The
gonna
meeting.
draft.
okay, yeah,
All right. Let's see. Short term. So we just gotta wait 1 minute? And then, well, per that clock, we're actually at 7:15. So let's consider it to be 7:15.
Sounds good.
So at 7:15, we'll take our 7:15 appointment, which is a tobacco compliance hearing for 414 Nathan Ellis Highway. Glenn, if you could give us the background information on that, please.
if you wanna talk, you need to come up to the mic. Okay. Cause we're on TV tonight, so. On April 16, 2016, during a tobacco compliance check at the above referenced establishment at Commons Convenience, 414 Nathan Ellis Highway, tobacco products were sold to a minor. At a subsequent hearing on April 20th, the Board of Health found the owner in violation, and it was a first offense at that point, so a fine of $100 was imposed. And then also at that time, the owner was directed to pay the fine and reminded that any violations in the coming 48 months would subject you to additional fines and/or permit revocation as a second offense. On October 3rd, 2019, a tobacco compliance check was conducted by a representative of the Cape Cod Regional Tobacco Control Program. During the inspection, 3 types of Fronto leaves, as well as Game Blue flavored tobacco products, were available for purchase. The compliance form was included in your packets and sent to the owner of the store. The sale of Fronto leaves are considered blunt wraps, which is a violation, and the sale of the flavored tobacco products is a violation. Regulation requires issuance of a $200 fine for the second offense and suspension of the tobacco sales permit for 5 consecutive business days at the board's discretion. I'll stop there. I have other comments, but I'll stop there.
Okay. If you have anything you'd like to say, please introduce yourself.
Yes, good evening. My name is Robert Mills. I'm an attorney, and I'm here on behalf of Commons Convenience, Inc., and here to my right is Mr. Saeed Chaudhry. He's the president of Commons Convenience. I'll give you my card so you have my information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I think I'd like, if I may, start off with a little bit of background, if I could. My understanding is that this particular regulation came into effect in the spring of 2019. And when it came out, there was certainly lack of clarity, at least in some of the retailers' minds, as to what was permissible and what wasn't permissible. So at that time, Mr. Chaudhry and Mr. Mansoor, Jabba Mansoor, who owns a Shell station on Route 130, requested that Mr. Harrington come out and maybe educate them as to what was permissible and what wasn't permissible. And Mr. Harrington was kind enough to go out to the Shell station on 130. Mr. Chaudhry, who you know is on 151, joined them at the 130 station. And Glenn was able to get Rob Collette there. He's runs the county program. And they were able to identify a lot of products, I think maybe hundreds of products that were not permissible. And so that was very helpful to them because it was far from clear what was allowed and what wasn't allowed. So he immediately went back to his store and removed about 800 separate individual products, 40 brands, but actually over 800 individual like products. And so they were trying to be proactive in trying to comply with the mandates of the new regulation. The products themselves are far from clear. By way of example, this Game Blue here. This is actually one of the ones that he was found in violation of. Nowhere on this packet does it say if it's flavored or not. The same kind of cigars, the Game brand, the red is not flavored. But it doesn't say that on the package either. It just doesn't say one way or the other if they're flavored or not flavored. So a retailer is really at a loss to know. And that's one of the reasons why they had Mr. Collette and Mr. Harrington go over when the regulations initially came out. So I'll hand this to you just so that you have it.
Thank you.
So he's been Mr. Chaudhry's been in business for 6 years.
At that location, at this location.
At this location here, he's got many other stores, but at this location here in Mashpee, he's been there for 6 years. He's got three employees there. They're open 19 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they have about 6,000 customers a week. And over the past 6 years, they've had approximately 1.8 million customers. During that period of time, they've had one violation in 2016, which isn't bad for 1.8 million people coming through the door. And that was an operation that was conducted by the county, I call it a sting operation, whatever you want to call it, but.
That's what they call them too.
It was that kind of an operation.
Yep.
And they were aware, and they conceded that and paid the $100 fine. One of the quandaries we find ourselves in today, though, is that some of the other towns, it's a 2-year period, a 2-year look-back period. This is a 4-year look-back period. This second violation occurred 3.5 years after that first one. So it's a considerable period of time compared to some of the other surrounding towns where they have a much shorter look-back period. And you're probably aware of it, but Glenn probably is aware of it. That's a copy of the
I understand.
Thank you.
the Barnstable regulation that references the 2-year period that they have. So it's a little bit more onerous in this town. So really, I think what we're asking for, and I don't know as though the board has this authority or not, is initially we were hoping that you would reconsider the violation itself and consider a warning. Whether you have that discretion or not, I don't know. If you don't have that discretion, I was wanting you to consider, and certainly we could discuss it with you if you're willing to, perhaps a bigger fine, rather than a closure of the business, a bigger fine, and exercise your discretion and not close the tobacco sales. The reason we're asking for that is number one, is the longevity and the history that they have, but also 50% of their revenue comes from tobacco. And it isn't just the tobacco sales themselves, but when people come in to buy tobacco, they also buy something else. They either buy gas, they buy candy, or chips, or beer, or, you know, whatever they buy. So the revenue loss to them is gonna be, on a closure just for tobacco, will be pretty significant for them. So if you didn't know the numbers, you would say, well, they can't sell tobacco for 5 days, it won't be a big deal. But actually, for them, it'll be a substantial deal.
Right, and I think it's kind of intended that way.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah. So my thought is, you know, I read the regulations, I looked at the county regulations, and I'm somewhat familiar with the state regulations of what Governor Baker's trying to achieve, you know, statewide with the vaping. And it appears as though the purpose of the regulation, the intent, the legislative intent of this board is to protect the minors. And one of the reasons why this happened is lack of education. And so what we're also proposing is, if you would consider it, is, I mean, had they known that the things that they had on the shelf violated the regulation, they wouldn't be there. That's why they went to Glenn and Mr. Collette when the regulation first came on. Tell us what we can't have, because we don't know. If you look at that package there, you don't know if you can have it or not.
Correct, and I'll give you that. It doesn't say anywhere on the box, or even when you take the item out of the box. However, when you go to the website, it says it's vanilla flavored, so I'm a little skeptical. You, as the owner, are responsible for knowing what products you're putting on your shelves. So at some point, you had to have seen that it was vanilla flavored. Or if it didn't immediately jump out at you, I mean, it's still your responsibility as the owner to know what you're stocking on your shelves.
If I'd known, I would have never put this for sale. I took a
Right.
lot of stuff. Once I understand with Mr. Glenn and Mr. Bob, they told me these lists, I took everything. Glenn knows, he goes to my store every 6 months to inspect. He knows I run a good business and very honest. I follow the rules and regulation. This is honest mistake. If I known they not permitted, they would have never been there. You can check with Glenn, he will tell you that.
So I think what we're getting at is what we'd like to do is take a more proactive measure, and not only his own business, but also maybe assisting the town in educating some of the other retailers by, you know, we're willing, even at his expense, to come up with some sort of list, and it's gonna require research, I think, to come up with a list, to identify in a clearer way what's not permissible. Because nobody wants to violate it. I mean, the ramifications are significant. On a third offense, it's even more significant. And nobody wants to be in that position to sell a couple cigars.
Right, and I believe that MAHB provided a list of products.
Right.
Yeah, the list is about 35 pages long.
Right, it's
And
a
I
lot.
don't know if the Game Blue was specifically on that list, and I know that list does change quite a bit.
Right,
That would be my only concern with providing a list, is you tend to rely on the list, but products change all the time. You know, whether or not they're intentionally trying to get you to stock items on your shelf that you previously didn't, so.
But at least it gives you guideline what's not permitted, and the list could be updated every year. It's very easy. Add on and just delete some stuff. We are honest person, we work hard.
Right.
We want to stay in the business, we don't want to close. And Glenn can say that, I know Glenn not from last 6 years, maybe 25 years. I have a store in Hyannis. He was over there, then he moved here. And I always follow the rules, run good business.
So I certainly don't think that you were intentionally trying to, you know, get one
Definitely.
buy. I don't think that this was a circumstance where you knowingly put something on your shelf.
I would never do.
The point I'm just trying to make is that you need to research the products that you're putting on your shelf, especially if they're gonna come in packaging that's not
But
fully,
you know how
informational.
many products, hundreds of hundreds. Who has the time sit on a computer, this is product good and not
Well,
good?
now you're facing 5 days of closure for not doing that research,
Well, I'm the
though.
mercy of you guys requesting, let me run business, I'll be more careful. But the best way is, if there's a list, then I could know when the rules pass. We didn't have any list, all verbally we talked to Bob, and Mr. Glenn, they told us this, not for sale.
Right.
So I think what we're trying to do is somewhat be hat in hand and, suggest that rather than be penalized in that kind of a way, to be more proactive and assist in any way we can so that this doesn't happen to other, if we're really trying to protect these products from getting into kids' hands, the 5-day closure is not going to, it may affect this particular store, but in general, the intent of the regulation is not going to be enhanced unless we do something to better educate the retailers. They can go right down the street, literally 200 yards from any Mashpee store to the Gulf store, which is in Barnstable, and they can
It's
buy all
permitted.
these prohibited products.
These I got from my other store, we sell over there.
Right.
Other flavors are banned, but these sell, they don't count as a flavor. In Highness, we sell these.
And while we're on the subject of those, so this was only one product of 2 products. There were 3 different styles of fronto leaf.
That's the-
Yeah,
that's
I
the
have-
one.
That's, I think
That's the
we
one,
answered
yeah.
that.
And they just
Typically-
leave, they're not cigars.
But
I
correct me
can-
if I'm wrong, that's what was covered at that meeting in January with Glenn and Bob, though, were the fronto leaves. Can you refresh our memory, Glenn?
Yeah.
In January, when we met at Route 130 Shell, Bob Collette went over, and what was hanging on the wall at that point was the Fronto King leaves, which is this product right here. And then this is Fronto King Mini. This is also a leaf. I didn't know they came in different sizes, but that's why I wanted you to bring, because I didn't,
No, that's
I
it.
knew of the Fronto King larger leaves, because that's
Yeah.
what I had seen. And then the cigars,
Cigar, there's
Which-
front of cigars too.
right, and the cigars are basically loosely wrapped
Yeah.
tobacco leaves, which you can.
My question, is that one permitted or not permitted?
It is not permitted because.
even Fronto leaf
it's-
cigars?
Yeah, because it's not really a cigar. They're so loosely
Even
wrapped.
on the box says a cigar.
Regulation
Yeah.
change, or was that in existence
And the mini,
previous?
this is a third one that I didn't realize that they had a different size on.
'Cause I
Here you go.
didn't- Thank you.
And so, I mean, when we were, in January, when we were at the Route 130 Shell, Bob Collette went over the leaves, the Fronto King leaves, but I know that Bob Collette was very late in coming to
Yeah, I know,
that
he came
store.
like when he
And
was in a hurry.
He was actually at your store.
Yeah.
Because he went to the wrong place. And,
Right, right, he went there then.
He told me that he went through
Yeah,
your store and did an inspection there before, and before he came over to Route 130 Shell. And so at that time, he informed, I don't know who the clerk was at that point, because I think you were here waiting.
Yeah, I was
You were at Route 130 Shell with me,
Yeah,
waiting for him.
that's right.
So one of your clerks was informed at that point that the Fronto leaves and the Fronto cigars both were not to be kept at the store and were not to be sold. So that part of it was done on a face-to-face basis at your store. So I know you were not there, but
Yeah.
you heard the Fronto leaf part when we were at the Route 130 Shell. So I think that there was enough education provided at that point. So it wasn't the first time that we had gone over. At least it was the second time that day, and granted, Saeed was with me at the Route 130 Shell store.
Right.
But his store had been educated as far as what he could have and what couldn't. And Bob Collette had done that before coming over to the Route 130 Shell store.
Okay. So earlier this year, we had a few violations similar, of a similar nature. Was it the same product that was involved with the others?
It was the Fronto leaves and the cigars, and the cigars weren't discussed when we did the training. But I know Bob Collette mentioned to me that the cigars were mentioned to the Commons Convenience Store when he was there prior.
Right.
Okay. So I think when the others came to us, and if I'm remembering this incorrectly, please correct me, we gave some leniency in that case, kind of with the, I guess, understanding that that was kind of a one-time thing, we weren't going to be applying that, you
Right.
know, sort of moving forward. The expectation is that, the information would be disseminated, so that when they did, if this came up again, we wouldn't be in that same type of a situation.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I recall also.
okay.
So this, although that discussion was had in January, this is the first violation with the leaves that this particular establishment has had, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's a difficult situation because for consistency's sake, especially with the establishment we had on,
At our last,
was it our last or 2 meetings ago,
yeah, that was two, that was two.
Precedent has been set, we should issue the same outcome, which was the fine and the closure. But this is the first violation regarding this for them, and also other precedent has been set where they were given a waiver in lieu of any further violations
I like that
for
one.
this particular item.
Right. So what happened with the one what she's discussing is they had a violation of this same
The
product.
front door?
Yeah, and that
Right.
was what,
And-
it was,
And they also had cigars at the
Uh,
incorrect price.
they had a
Right.
couple of
So
products,
there
so
were
they,
two parts to that violation, just like there's two parts here, where
Right.
there's a flavored product and then the Fronto leaves,
Mm-hmm.
which are considered the blunt wrap, so.
so there were 2 or 3 stores that came to us at that point. I think they had all kind of put some of these, there were
two stores.
2 stores?
And was that after the training or before? I'm
It was after
just
the
not
training.
remembering. It was after
yeah,
the
that was
training,
after the
okay.
training, yeah. So what we did in that case was, we said, we'll kind of, we're not giving you a full pass on this. I think we kept the fines, if I recall.
Yep, you stayed the fines and gave it another 12-month tolling period.
Right.
If any other violations occurred, then the violation would be, and the fine would be reinstated.
Right.
Right, okay.
Right. So what happened is that the other store then had a sale to a minor, so then this violation came back into play. So the second violation resulted in a 5-day revocation of their
Right.
permit. So the question is, do we
Give them the
do we
stay
give them
of the
that same
violation.
benefit in this case?
I think there's two separate precedents that kind of are coming to a head in this scenario, and it's,
Yeah, I agree.
But I also think we need to amend the regulation too, in the meantime, to include the Fronto
to be more
leaves and
clear.
cigars and the different sizes to be considered blunt wrap so that all of the retailers know that.
Agreed. I was just looking at our regulations, and I think we absolutely need to add
Yeah.
much clearer language if this is going to be an issue for them.
Right.
In my opinion, although it is a second violation and they are facing the same closure, it is a very unclear issue, it seems to be, consistently across the board. So that could potentially be our fault as, people who wrote the regulation. Maybe, we weren't clear enough if this is gonna consistently be an issue.
Right, yeah, if this is the third, then perhaps it is best to, yeah, definitely take a second look at the regulation. But I think in this case, I think, to me personally, I mean, I think giving the benefit of that doubt is, sort of builds goodwill in the community, I hope.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's, that's kind of, there's the part of me that says, if we don't enforce a regulation strongly enough, then it sends the signal that we're not, going to enforce it strongly enough for other violators. So that's that's always that fine line of, setting the correct example and at the same time understanding individual situations and intent. I don't myself believe that it was your intent to violate the regulation with these products, but I also think there was research you could have done to have certainly prevented that particular product. Now, I understand there's a large number of products that you sell, and it's certainly difficult to do all of your internet research, but as a businessman, that's certainly, that's sort of an expectation there that you would do your research.
And if you're not going to, then the risk you face is potentially being shut down for 5 days.
Yeah, so.
Or
that
whatever
would-
the violation may be,
That would sort of be my
so.
expectation is, if we found an ambiguously packaged product again that was
Mm-hmm.
flavored, I would have the expectation that you would have done the research to make sure that that product didn't get put back on your shelves. I mean, I understand it's probably a bit of work to do that, but, just to keep yourselves out of, we don't want to be sitting here again, so,
Part of it, I think, is also the manufacturers maybe misleading, potentially.
No, the
Yeah,
especially with
tobacco
the cigar. Well,
corporations
that's
have
what
always
the
been very,
whole argument is, that
upfront and
the
honest.
big tobacco has made it
Right,
to be misleading, so that the kids and everybody else doesn't know. We're all adults sitting here, and we don't know.
Yeah.
The kids certainly don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
right, absolutely.
But the example is that cigar, that Fronto cigar.
They came up with no front, that's why I asked you, and that's not permitted either. The front, we don't sell it.
But it's a
in
cigar.
Hines, they sell, yeah, it's a cigar, but made with the frontal leaves. Look like cigar, wrap in a cigar box, like they come two in a box like this. And they say cigar, they don't say it's leaf.
Right.
But made with the leaves,
It's made to be taken apart and used as a wrapper.
Right.
I don't sell it, but
Yeah.
they said, that's what reason I asked.
Right.
Can I get some more information on this product as well? Did I go up there to the microphone?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
just have to
yeah.
introduce
Oh, yeah,
yourself,
yeah.
state your name.
Yep, just state your name so we know who you are.
This is his son,
Yeah, Raheel Chaudhry.
Raheel.
So the main thing I think with that was misleading is there's like 20 plus flavors of game. Majority of them are flavored and they say watermelon, strawberry, whatever. And then there's also like 5 game flavors that are like game black, game silver, game red, game green, and then game blue. And all of them are non-flavored except for game blue, which is the only flavor in that.
Yeah.
So I just feel like
It's very misleading.
yeah,
so-
this one product is the most misleading out of all their products because every other flavored one says a flavor on it, and all the other colors are non-flavored except for blue.
Yeah,
So-
it's a shell game, yeah.
Right.
So can I ask, how does your sort of ordering process work on these things? Do you kind of have a contract with a distributor who just brings you products, or do you order them online? How does that kind of work?
So our distributor, J. Pollock, is like the major distributor for pretty much all of Massachusetts. There's that one and one other that we, I can't remember the name of it. But J. Pollock's the biggest one in Massachusetts, basically. So what they do is, when you first open up the store, they will like say, these are popular products, they'll send you that. And then when you can see what it's selling, you order more of that product, just like scanning the barcode of it, and they'll like send you another shipment. And then when they have a new product, like a new game flavor comes out or something, then they'll be like, hey, this is a new flavor.
They'll make a visit to the store
Yeah,
and
they'll
say,
come to the
hey,
store,
look at
"Oh,
this.
You should carry this product, it's a new flavor,
Right.
or it's a popular, or just came out, we'll ship you one. If it sells, you can order more.
Similar
Usually
with
goes around
liquor
that order.
distributors.
Yeah, it's less of us going around being, oh, do you have this or not? Unless
Okay.
someone comes in asking for something, in which case we'll ask them if they carry it, then order it from them.
Right, all right, okay. So I could certainly see where there's a bit of obfuscation that goes on there.
There's been plenty of times when they send us things we don't want, they're like, oh, keep it, it's a promotional item, if you don't like it,
Right.
or take it back. or something like
Right,
that.
right, yeah, I'm sure.
I would certainly have a conversation with them after this and be very thorough in your expectations going forward.
Yeah.
Saying, we don't appreciate the fact that you're sending us products that are banned,
Yeah, like, it's not, yeah, I agree.
or at least tell us if they're flavored, As someone who's paying for their services, you certainly want to request more information going forward.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that would be my expectation, sort of in exchange for, I kind of think where
Yeah.
we're at with this.
Leniency will not be on the table next time if
Yeah.
it's
I
the
hate to
same
be here.
issue,
I don't want to be
so.
here,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You don't want to come see us?
It's the last thing, it's not that I don't like it.
That's okay. I don't take it that way. I'd
I'm
rather-
sitting here.
I'd rather be home tucking my kids
Or even
in,
sitting over there.
so, yeah.
We know what you meant. So I move to stay the fine and the violation for a period of 12 months, However, should any second violation take place in that time period, the original fine and violation come back onto the table, in addition to the new fine and violation.
And that's any violation of our tobacco regulations for clarity. So even though this was sort of in a gray area now, it still counts as a violation. So, so you'd be looking at the suspension again.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Is that specific enough, Glenn?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll second that motion, and before we vote, would you like to add something?
So I think I heard you mention when you were talking to yourselves about a list being available. Where would we be able to get another copy of that?
I can resend it to you.
All right, perfect. Just so we can like go over it once more, just to make sure nothing happened.
Okay.
Okay.
But we understand that may not be an exhaustive list.
Yeah, no.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, understand that names, products are gonna change, so.
They-
I thank you for that, really appreciate you consider being a, I mean,
They're gonna vote first.
Yep, yep, let's take a vote.
You can thank us after.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I'm teasing.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for coming
Listening
in.
to us.
one more thing.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I really appreciate,
Thanks, Glenn.
but I brought a copy of the
I gave him
4
one.
years.
I gave him.
It's a long time. So many things happen. 4 years, like I've been the 6th year, this is the second one, not just selling to minor, but selling a not permitted products. I think board should revisit the time period. It should be 2 years. I mean, 4 years, long period. And next town is a big town, basketball. Not only that, I heard this is the new state law. The girl from Sharon Crocker, she said me she just got this from the state, the new rules for 2 years. If anything happens within 2 years, they kick in. Otherwise, it's not,
Yeah.
like, I wouldn't be here if the rules here for 2 years. It would like, mine, first one is 3.5 years ago.
Yeah,
So I
that,
request,
that part has been in the regulation actually for a long time.
but now things.
Back in 2008 or 2009, I think is when that was changed with a previous board. And,
That wasn't something we updated.
There were templates that were circulated to all the boards. And, 4 years was definitely the longest.
It is.
Yeah, but that's been in the regulation for a while.
I agree with you, but it should be, I requesting, all I can
Yeah.
request, should be revisit and see the other towns, what they're doing. On the state level, they're doing 2 years.
Yeah.
You can check with Sharon Crocker tomorrow, she
Yeah.
told me she got this from the state.
Yep.
Well, I think we will be revisiting tobacco regulations in the near future, just to clarify a few things. You can certainly bring that to the table when we have public
To the
hearings.
public
I,
hearing.
Okay.
yeah, I thank you for that.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
wish you have a nice evening.
You too.
Thank you.
I know I have to pay $200, but I'm happy I don't have to close. You guys, for the consideration, I really appreciate it.
We're
Thank
happy
you.
also. Thank you for
Thank you
coming.
very much.
Don't forget your product here.
Have a nice evening.
You too, sir.
Take care.
Okay, so that concludes our open session business. We do have an executive session this evening, so we'll need to first vote to close the open session, then,
Do a roll call vote to open into executive session.
I
Right.
move to close the public session.
I will second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.